But first, if you could please introduce yourself and tell us like your name, where you went to school, what you studied, and then we'll go from there.
For sure. Nariman, my programs. My pronouns are they, them. I went to Converse College in Spartanburg, South Carolina, where I studied social entrepreneurship, and I graduated in 2015, I think. Yeah. Um, but yeah, that was I think that's the gist of it.
And then what did you do? What was your life like post grad?
LOL. You know that I did a lot of things post grad, and said a lot of words. But I
We
think
love to.
the high notes that I usually go over are basically that I was a kid who was basically like a straight A student and really loved school and like was playing college basketball and was doing all the things and like got all of the stuff accomplished as I was like supposed to. Um, and then it turns out that none of that stuff actually makes you intrinsically happy if it's not what moves you. And I had learned very early on that there was like a right way to do a lot of my life, and it was like slowly eating away at me, and I needed to do the work of like coming home to myself and building a life that was actually going to sustain me. I talk a lot about how I just realized how young I was. Very like right after school, I had always sort of felt older than I was, and that there was like a race to get things done. And suddenly I was like acutely aware that I was quite young, and then I was thankfully and hopefully going to have a lot of years ahead of me, and I needed to figure out how to do this life and community thing.
Hmm. So what brought that about? Because I feel like a lot of students are when they're first graduating, it's like, okay, let me just find a job and work.
Yeah.
So what kind of initiated you being more explorative with like your happiness versus your work and what you wanted to do?
Yeah, for sure. It's so interesting. I don't know that there was an exact moment. I know that I think a really big part of my story has always been like the people in the company that kind of come in and out of my life. And they never were folks who were like, you need an intervention. Like, you're sad. You got to do the things. They were just delightful people who cared about me really deeply. And with each, addition of a person who was like, I talk a lot about like my best college friend, Keely Wofford, who essentially just was like, I don't care about your accomplishments, your achievements, whatever it is. Like, I just think you're delightful. And like, it was the first time in my life where I think I heard that and I like internalized it as, oh my God, this person just likes me. Like, they care about me really deeply, and it doesn't really matter um, what awards I get and whether or not I'm the captain or not, or any of those things. So I think the Keeleys in my life really propelled me to start thinking about like what's going to keep me happy and healthy and around, rather than like successful and whatever that means. So I started to parse out like, what does it actually mean to be Nari? Like, what does it mean to be joyful and contented, and what does it mean to be interested and engaged? And it's a lifelong process. I've dedicated like the better half of the last 5 years to it, and I'm really happy that I have, because it's been the work of my life, and I think it will continue to be.
Mhm. Um, do you mind sharing a bit more about maybe what you do or like
Yeah,
daily practices or how you reflect on that?
for sure. So I think this kind of ties in a little bit with what I do day to day. I started my career in social justice and technology at a nonprofit called Code 2040, where I like built their communication system. I moved to a place called GitHub, where I was building um, internal structure and strategy on their internal comms team for a couple of years, and then I'm at Slack, where I'm a program manager for their global communications team and incident comms. And through all of that, Tara, I don't know if you know of a place called Stanford. It's a really cool place, and I teach at the D school. And I mentioned the D school part specifically because I sort of lecture and do research on the design of identity and community, all that sort of like squishy stuff that we as people, I think, if I think of people like my sister who are like social butterflies and just out there doing the things, they just kind of like get it. And I've always been a kid who was just like a bit more like dorky and cerebral about it, and just was like, wait, how did you do that? And like, how did that happen? And like, how did you make friends? And how did you like contend with like that opinion? Um, and so I think a lot of my work, the like tagline on my email right now is like, I do process. Like, I try to figure out and parse out, like, okay, can we make that into a set of steps? And like, it doesn't have to be strict. It doesn't have to be the same ones every single time. But like, can we make that into a set of behaviors, and sort of clarify them and teach them to other people? So that's a really big part of my practice now. Like, I've learned over the years what my steps are, what my sort of like process is. And so I think like there's the high notes that everybody talks about in wellness, which is like, oh, you know, you get up, you have a routine, you take care of yourself, you make sure you're drinking water. But like, I've also learned that um, I I don't necessarily, I am not sustained by sort of the like surface level social interaction, which a lot of people really enjoy, to just like, you know, shoot the shit, do the things. Um, as you know, because we have had many of these chats, like I really like to go deep and like understand folks, not necessarily just to like um, go straight to the dark place, but like to really get to like the meat of like, but why do you do that, and why does that make you tick, and how does it make you feel, and all that sort of stuff. So I think again, through therapy, through my research, through just like the folks that I've had the opportunity to keep in my life and keep around, I have been able to sort of parse out like what makes me tick,
Mhm.
and that's kind of the work.
That's awesome. I love that, like, seemingly right after you graduated college, you've been able to have developed this mindset, and the way you go through all these different career positions and life moves, I think is awesome.
Thanks. And
Yeah. So I have one last question for you.
yeah.
What is one piece of advice that you would maybe share with yourself, like a few years ago, and
Yeah.
that you share to people today?
Um, go to therapy.
Yeah.
I feel like I tell you this all the time, and I feel
Yeah.
like I tell everybody in the program this all the
I
time. But like,
today.
woo, go to therapy.
Yeah.
It is finding a therapist that you love and that you trust, and that you find, and that you like, that understands you and your community, is like, woo, major key. It literally has been life changing for me, and being able to sort of like parse out and talk about my emotions, and like make sure that they are like properly communicated and show up for other people. Like, it's just, it is the work.
Mhm.
So go to therapy. Two, release yourself from the life you like think you should live, and live the one that you want to live. I lived for a really long time in the shoulds,
Mhm.
and it was overwhelming. It was it not only was it like numbing and just like completely uninteresting. I truly believe that if it were not for the sort of like pivot and the like choices that I've made to make sure that I like came home to myself, that I wouldn't be around now. I don't think I had any intention of making it to this point, and um, it was only through that, like the work of like therapy, the work of like self understanding, the work of understanding other people, and my relationship to them, that I really was able to parse out like, oh, I'm living a life that somebody else designed for me, and I need to live the one that I want to live. So I think those are my main two. And then like, I feel like people tactically always ask me like, how do I get a job, and like, how do I network and do all the things, and like the answer and it's like really frustrating, but like the answer is truly just to be like in interested in people as people. I feel like the leads that I have gotten, even before I was like properly in
Mhm.
the networks, right, were just that I was curious about folks, and I was asking them about like their families and their lives and what they were interested in, and not just like, hi, can you give me a job, hi, can you like be a mentor, like having the time to really establish connection and be genuinely interested in what makes people tick has kind of been the saving grace of my career many times over.
Mm-hmm. Fire advice. Thank you.